if you are tuning in, please say hi in the chat, let us know, and also let us know your questions too, so that we can cover them as we get started. I'm really excited to welcome Jim on the show today, and this is kind of fun because in the past, Jim has interviewed me, so now we've switched the roles, and now Jim's in the hot seat. And so welcome, Jim, to the show.
Thank you very much. I didn't, will chat be showing up on my screen, do you know, or do only you see chat?
Good question. It will be on the right side of the screen that you and I are seeing. Okay. It will be underneath there. Cool. And I'll also keep an eye on our Facebook page, and I'm just looking now, and it seems to be having a message that our schedule has. So let me just double check that we are, in fact, live. People are catching our show. While I check that, in case we are live, do you want to just and introduce?
Sure. While you're looking for that'd be my pleasure. My name is Jim Verzino. I'm entrepreneur in residence at a food and agriculture business accelerator called Wyndham Grows. In addition, I have a web series and podcast called Greater Good Entrepreneur, although we are between seasons of Greater Good Entrepreneur right now, but you can still see some of the shows. Danielle, you're on one of them at greatergoodentrepreneur.com, so I run this business accelerator. I've started a few different socially conscious businesses in the past, and now I'm lucky enough to be working with others that are starting their own socially conscious, in my case, food and agriculture businesses in this particular accelerator. And then we've got awesome. part of what the accelerator is doing. We've actually got the accelerator is actually part of a larger organization called Strolling of the Heifers. And Strolling of the Heifers is a farm and local food focused nonprofit that does all kinds of different things for local farmers and the local food movement. And we've got our biggest thing right now is we've got a conference coming up called Entrepreneur to Table in Brattleboro, Vermont, that is really all about starting and growing a conscious food business. So that's who I am, and hopefully that very long introduction gave you enough time to do whatever technical things you needed to do to see if this thing is working. Or are we just talking to each other?
Yes. No, we're good to go. We are recording, and we have a few people tuning in. So if you're tuning in, please say hi. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And yeah, Jim, it was funny because when our intro together for you for some of our communication in a lot of, and it's even evolved, since because we've been a little while now, but frequently, right? So people's work, because you support them to in general, and the slow, there's a lot of opportunities to be involved. So I want to dive into more of those topics in more detail as we chat today.
Cool. And
hi, Nazreen. Thanks for tuning in. Nazreen's in Calgary, a friend of mine, so that's great. I want to get back to kind of the food ag side of things. But first, I want you as a person a little bit more. So could you let us know the day? What does the day look like?
My ideal day or my normal day? I just asked because the sound cut out there for a second, so I heard describe and day, and I didn't know what was in the middle.
Yes, ideal day.
My ideal day. Okay, so my ideal day, and I have these probably a couple of times a month. I really thrive on when we get as part of our accelerator, we bring together a group of entrepreneurs a couple times a month, and they come into our accelerator center, and we work at them as a group on various things. It could be marketing, it could be finance, it could be how to roll out a new product with the business model canvas, whatever that is. So my ideal day really is in the morning. Maybe I'm talking to an investor about one of the companies I'm working with or some mutual opportunity that we're working on together. And then in the afternoon, I'm working with the entire group because there's something about the group that really makes it all work. And in addition to those, so that's the work ideal day, but really life is very integrated. So my ideal day starts with, me doing the morning ritual that I feel like I need to do to keep myself healthy and wealthy and wise. And it always finishes with me only eating the right things that I need to eat to keep my body healthy, because that's a really important thing that I'm really trying to work on.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it makes a big difference. It's hard to put those habits into action. So it's good to think about our ideal, always work towards it.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, of course. But we can try.
That's just it, right? I always just try to keep it top of mind, and
yeah,
definitely not successful all the time every day because I try to keep my carbs down, and that's really hard when you end up eating out a lot with other colleagues. So.
And so I have to ask, because you work with focused companies, choices as well? Good. Must, because you just choose.
You know what? I'm only getting like every third word you're saying, I'm afraid.
Okay, sorry about that. Jim, that too. I'm gonna put myself off camera. If you're okay, Jim, I'll leave you on camera and
Sure.
We'll just have me on audio. Let's see if that works.
That's unfortunate for the viewers, but
okay. Is it any better now?
I'm still seeing you.
Our viewers, though, matter. A little bit.
I'm still getting the same. You could put the questions in the chat.
I could do that. Okay, okay, here we go. I'm super techie now.
Tell us about how
you have you on the screen. So it started on all of this path that you're on.
Okay, sure. So how it got started was, about 10 years into my career, I was doing training. I was working a lot with manufacturers on automation, and I knew I wanted to do something around environmentalism. So how it got started really was basically a conscious movement of my career into working on environmental issues that were happening. I worked with big manufacturers, so really just changing my career into working on environmental issues that manufacturers were having, helping manufacturers reduce environmental footprint and reduce energy usage in general. But the more I started working on that and working with companies on it, the more I realized everything was interconnected. That it wasn't just about the environment, that social justice affected the environment as well. And the more I studied it, the more I got into it, the more I realized everything was integrated. So that kind of got me to more of a big picture thing. And then about 5 years ago, I sort of was doing a reset on a number of things in my life, and I was making some changes. And I got thinking to myself, life is really about who we spend our time with day in and day out. And at the time doing that work, I was having a huge impact in terms of I could go into a company and help them reduce their waste by 20 or 30%. And that was great. But in terms of my own life, thinking about who do I like spending my time with? Well, I like spending my time with passionate, entrepreneurial people. That's who I like to be around. So I made a real conscious decision to start trying to move my career into working with more people that I thought were passionate and entrepreneurial. And that's really how I moved into this direction. And that took, it was a couple of year plan to do that. It didn't happen kind of overnight, but that's how and then basically, because I had already started a couple of businesses, I started to just reach out to other people and really made it a conscious point to be around these types of people, not even for money not even for pay in the beginning, just doing things in my life to get around the kind of people that I wanted to be around. So then as I got to know more and more people, different opportunities came up that got me into this kind of a place.
The transition, it sounds like it was very conscious and deliberate.
Absolutely.
Was it hard? Yeah.
Was it hard?
Yeah.
Was it hard? I would say it was a lot of conscious work, but I wouldn't say it was hard because it didn't really, it was hard in that it required diligence, right? So kind of like, is meditation hard? Well, all you're doing is sitting there breathing. So just sitting and breathing is something we do every day. So that's not hard, but being disciplined to go and sit every day, somehow that's hard. And this was hard in the same way, right? Like when I'm having conversations with someone like you, it's awesome because we can go on and on forever about different ideas and different things. So that part is easy. But basically getting myself off of one path that had a very high paying, very sort of straightforward career path that was easy to stay on, staying disciplined about making sure that I was finding ways to connect with someone like you, that was hard. And that required daily effort. So
practice.
Right. It wasn't hard, but it required discipline to stay with the practice. That's exactly right.
That's really cool to hear. I'm not sure of people being so deliberate shift like that. More often shift and transition more by accident, right? By taking opportunities or leaving opportunities and not necessarily should that. Okay, up on the screen, which you touched on already, but we talked about the groups of entrepreneurs and what specific do you love with?
Can you type that in? Because I'm still only getting a little bit of you.
Yep, I have the question on the screen there.
I feel most excited and fired up. Okay. So I'd say the most excited. So when do I feel most excited? So the most excited and fired up probably happened 2 or 3 weeks ago. The Business Accelerator, where I'm the entrepreneur in residence, is actually funded by various funding sources. Some of them are government in nature here in the U.S. And Bernie Sanders actually came to announce the opening of Wyndham Grows, and I got to share the stage with Bernie Sanders. So Bernie spoke, then a couple others people, then I spoke. And that's a really hard act to follow, but it was super exciting and crazy, and just it took weeks to prepare. Well, a couple of weeks to prepare, a couple of weeks of basically working from 8 a.m. to midnight because of all the different political things going on and all the businesses in the accelerator and all their questions, and it was incredible. But so when I'm most excited is when I get to do something like that. Now that's kind of like a once in a lifetime kind of thing. So that's super exciting. But the things that are most exciting for me are getting real work done with the cohorts in my accelerator. We've got people we're working with right now, and we're really moving them ahead, and it just feels great to be able to sit with them, get some ideas of what they want to do, and then I can go off and use my connections and other things that I can do to sort of help bring them to a new level, which just feels incredible. So those are the kind of most exciting times. And also really when I'm working with committed funders that really want to get things done, because then you're in a room of people that can really make things happen. And that's always really fun to be able to kind of bring together a couple different people like that, get everybody working together, and actually get an initiative off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I think the theme of it every time is I'm working with exciting people. Whenever the most exciting things are happening, it's because I'm in a room with really interesting, exciting people.
It's a great way to share. Cool. Okay, I'm going to pop the next question in.
Okay.
And I want to say so much more, but I have trouble hearing each other. So we'll stick to the questions because I tend to blab on. What's something differently than most people in terms of or approach or whatever?
So I'd say the biggest thing that I do differently, and this is kind of reflected in our Entrepreneur to Table Summit and in a couple other things that I do, and that is, I'd say the thing that I do differently is I am extremely intentional about the people with whom I spend my time. So I'm really intentional about, number one, just kind of who I allow into my circle, but also I will be very intentional about the people that I want to meet and provide value to them. So to give you an example, how I ended up in this role as a entrepreneur in residence, the parent agency that started this project, I live in a very small town in Vermont, so I traveled a lot, but I wanted to get to know sort of the top social entrepreneurs locally. So, and some of them, and most of them I didn't know at all. So I literally would go around and do whatever I could to provide value to those people. And when I started out in what is now my role, I met the founder of this organization. Strolling of the Heifers, by the way, is the name of the parent organization. And part of Strolling of the Heifers has a big building right in the center of town, and there's a lot of public events there. And I would just always show up at the end of events just to help clean up the chairs, because that's the last time that anyone's standing around. And the volunteers that hang around the latest and clean up the chairs, those are the people that end up kind of sitting around and having a beer afterwards and getting to know each other. So totally, highest value I could deliver to that person in that moment, even though I wanted to get to know her very well, because she was someone, I sort of looked around the town and said, who's someone that started a socially responsible organization from nothing and built it up? Because that's the person I wanted to be. So I found that organization, found the founder, and the highest value I could deliver in that moment was cleaning up chairs. So I would just show up and start cleaning up the chairs. And, I got on other volunteer boards and things like that, but, I cleaned up the chairs for a while. That led to some conversations. That led to me being on the steering committee for it's now called Entrepreneur to Table. At the time it was called the Slow Living Summit. That got me on the steering committee of the Slow Living Summit, just because in conversation it was like, what do you do for a living? Oh, I do this. And then after being on that steering committee, I ended up on the board of directors of Strolling of the Heifers, the parent organization. While I was on the board, the founder came up with the idea of starting this business accelerator. So then as a board member, this was all volunteer, helped her put together all the funding and all that. It was probably a 1.5-year project. I mean, all that was because I was really intentional about find people that I want to meet, that I want to emulate, that I want in my circle of the 5 most important of the 5 people you surround yourself with, and provide them value. And that was it. So, I try to be really intentional about who I allow to be in my circle, and I try to provide value to people that I want to bring into my circle and into my life.
Such a great example of, we can't have this expectation that we go from zero social entrepreneur, with exactly the type of work we want to do over, get to know, start with chairs, now you're entrepreneur and resident business accelerator, and working with people like you wanted to do. So
Right.
I love that.
And when I met this particular person, I had no idea that that's where this was going. All I knew was if I surround myself with the kind of people that I want to become, something good will happen. I would have never in a million years imagined that I would have ended up doing this. Actually, I never even occurred to me.
That's so great. Okay.
Yeah.
Now this kind of builds off that question because I'm curious to know if it's related, and that is to ask what's the you've made in yourself or your business. And because you, I think, often can make choices early on and you don't know where or how it's going to serve you later to this.
So I'd say the best investment I've made in myself actually was turning off the news. So every morning when I get up after all the craziness of the house is over with, I either listen to audiobooks or I listen to podcast interviews like this one that, surround myself with the kind of people that I want to emulate and take in that knowledge. And basically, those are investments in myself. They're really not investments of money to basically get the attitude that I needed. I mean, there was this period where I knew the kind of person I wanted to be, but I didn't know any people like that. And that investment, first find them on podcasts because that's all I could figure out. And then once I found them on podcasts, they would give their little tips of what to do, like deliver value to people you want to be around, surround yourself. You know, I forgot what the Zig Ziglar thing is, right? We become the five people that we become the five people we spend the most time with. Is that it? So
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So the biggest investment in myself actually was shutting off public radio in the morning, and basically as part of my morning ritual while I'm preparing my high carb breakfast or my low carb breakfast, my no carb breakfast, my high protein breakfast. As part of that ritual, I turn on podcasts or books that I listen to and take the ideas from that. So before I start my day, I've already and then listen to something inspiring or that makes me smarter while I'm making my breakfast that's healthy and walking my dog. And that's really, it's an amazing investment. And I just can't even, it took a year before anything really happened, but all I knew was I just kept on getting good stuff going in there. And eventually I did it every single day. That good stuff started to lead to things like meet people that, you want to emulate and provide them value. Right. And I still do it every day. So that's what I do every day. It has nothing to do with money. Obviously being in physically good shape, part of the morning ritual is also exercise, but those are the investments actually that I find have paid off more than anything else. If I could go back 25 years, there's a lot of things I'd change, but it's amazing to me that something so simple as do this little thing every day has driven that many results.
Mm-hmm.
So
really interesting. You know why? Well, not only because I think it's like a choice attention, but we also on the show when I asked her this question, podcast as well. So I think there's a theme emerging of knowledge and of receive it from people who are where you want to be or experience to share with you. And that's partly why we started doing this show too, because people watching are going to get some great ideas and insights, and hopefully it all snowballs. So
right.
I'm going to show Brandon. Sorry, Brandon. What are your podcasts? We hear a question from the audience.
Yeah. So actually, one of the ones he doesn't do it anymore. So one of the ones I often listen to right now. So I've got a couple different ones, but in terms of sort of self-help and business, I love 99% Invisible I listen to like before bed because this guy's got this soothing voice that just, oh, I just love it. But actually, I really like James Altucher. And so his show so the one he does now, he interviews authors. And what I love about that is he gets into these really interesting questions, and I feel like I probably get more value out of listening to the author sort of riff about his stuff than I do out of the book sometimes. And sometimes I'll read the book, sometimes I won't, but I find that those author interviews can be really good. He actually used to have a podcast called Ask Altucher, and it was a daily. He did no prep at all, and he stopped doing that. But that was also a good one. So, and there's another one called The Fizzle Show. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's for The Fizzle Show. I find it amazing, actually. It's for, I think they call it independent businesses. So they don't technically use the term social entrepreneur, but it's all about, it's basically resources for people that want to start their own business from scratch and basically live out a business that they are passionate about. That's kind of the whole theme. So those are really two right now that I really get into. There's another one called Mixergy, which is really for high-tech entrepreneurs. That's kind of their focus, but he's done over 1,000 interviews, and I started listening to that, actually. That's the first one where I was like, I just want to listen to people that have started their own businesses from scratch, because one of the challenges I find is, when they interview Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg, like, it's useless. I mean, it's interesting, but it's useless in terms of what do I need to do today to get me from where I am today to just running my own business, where I can make a full-time living running my own thing that I want to do. And hearing about sort of picture marketing really doesn't do anything for that. So those are my, what did I say? Fizzle, Mixergy, and James Altucher. Those are my three big ones right now.
Great. I'll have to check in. It's all about people, what they've learned, and the bits of their life, right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Another question, and one, but let's see. Let's talk for a few minutes here and throw it out to share. And that is, how do social innovators build coalitions? You've been part of a few big projects, so you mentioned about this.
So
to throw you on the spot.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple different similarities I see in every one of those. And the first one is passion to your cause, right? I mean, you just need that passion to get started. The next one I would say is, and again, this goes back to finding people that can help be influencers and bringing value to them. So if I want to, so right now, for instance, even though I'm the entrepreneur in residence for a food accelerator, I actually came from the manufacturing business. Now, it was a lot of food packaging manufacturers that I coincidentally worked with, but I'd not started my own food business. So if I'm going to start a coalition around local farming activities, I'm going to go find all the authors that are talking about local farming and all the podcast creators that are talking about local farming. And I'm not just going to find them and ask them to do me favors of spreading my word. I'm going to find a way to provide value for them, right? So I believe that's one of the most important things in really starting a coalition. And I look at what you've done here, right? You now have your own coalition here of 13 or 1,400 people in the lab. And, what I love about the lab is it's people out there doing real things. It's not people talking about doing things they want to do someday. It's people doing real things. And you've probably, I don't know how long you've taken, a couple of years to build that up, I assume, right?
Yep. Yep.
And one way to look at it is, well, 13 or 1,400 is not a big number, but it's actually a really big number because you've actually got people that are really doing things, right? You could have taken other paths, and you could have that number at 10 or 20,000, but it would probably be a much lower quality than what you've got here in the lab.
Slow and steady.
Exactly, the daily practice, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So you build the coalitions from the daily practice. Every time you hear about an overnight success, there's a 10-year story that built into that overnight success that doesn't get talked about.
100. I love this chair example, using that, because actions like go to the event, there's now, who knows where you'll end up.
That was literally what I did. I went and picked up the chairs.
Yeah.
For a few months, actually.
Tim, do you have time for just one more, and then
Sure.
we'll wrap it up? Okay, sure. Awesome. As Jim, we're all about quality. Yay. Fun. I feel like that makes a big difference. What you do, right? Final question, and it's a big. What do you see that holds people, social entrepreneurs, from figuring out this puzzle, and when it comes to and sustainability?
Yeah, well, that's like this
loaded. I know.
That's a really giant question, right? But I think I can bring it down to I'll bring it down to a couple things that I think are most important, right? One is an integrated life, and what I mean by that is specifically in the form of creating a career in social entrepreneurship or creating a business that you care about, is actually managing expenses. Most business owners, and I've worked with them for many, many years, most people that say they want to start a business, especially if they're over, say, 30 years old, their monthly expenses are just too high. I mean, the first thing you need to do is not need to make a lot of money in the beginning. I mean, eventually you'll get there, but to get the thing off the ground, you need to have your monthly expenses super low, because until it gets going, the more you're having to feed the beast of your monthly expenses, the harder it is to just be able to get enough runway to get off the ground. So I'd say one of the first things is manage expenses, right? When I work with people that are starting, they're starting from scratch, they've got a business idea and they're looking to get going. Some of the first things we do actually is talk about, let's look at your life. How much money do you really need per month? And you know what, if you got 4 kids and they're getting ready for college, this might be a lot harder than if your kids are already out of the house and you only need, 1/5 of X or 30% of whatever that number was 5 years ago. So get your expenses as low as you can, number one. Number two, again, knowing what the right thing to do next is one of the most important things. They could probably and this probably could help with someone working with someone like yourself or Solane, who kind of work in this area specifically. One of the toughest things that all entrepreneurs, social or not, have to deal with is what actually is the appropriate thing I should be doing right now? Because there's 1,000 things you could be doing, right? But what is the thing that I need to do right now? And if you're literally just getting started, it's getting your first customer, and then your second customer, and then your third customer, and then figuring out your systems. Not building your perfect website or worrying about your legal status or the 1,000 other distractions. It's getting a customer. And whenever I sort of quiz a class in one of our really early startup courses, and when I sort of ask the question, what do you think is the thing that stops most businesses from being successful? It's always about not enough investment money, a better web, all these things. And once in a while, in the first 5 answers, someone will come up with not enough customers. And really, so that's it. So understanding and knowing what you should be doing next is probably the next big challenge. So getting enough customers, connecting with the right people, and keeping your expenses low, those are the 3 things that I would totally off the cuff recommend for this one.
That's wonderful advice. I think that we probably don't necessarily talk about as much. And by we, I just mean every space to support social entrepreneurs or work on the strategy. But that's an interesting, if your expenses are double, your in terms of your lifestyle and you're doing it is you need
one of the
customers. So
yeah, actually one of the I'm thinking back on it now and looking at just my own story. How I ended up in this small town was I lived in Boston for about 18 years, and I did own my own house, which was great, and it's still something that helps me. But I ended up moving to this smaller town about an hour and 45 minutes out of Boston because every time I had tried to start a business when I lived in Boston, I'd make it about 6 months. And I'd be like, I can see how I could do what I need to do to get this thing working, but that's going to take me another 6 months, and I could never afford enough runway to get where I needed to be. And actually, I was so committed to this because I had failed so many times that I was like, the only way I'm going to make this work is to cut my expenses. So I moved out of Boston, moved to a place that was much more affordable, cut basically a huge amount of my living expenses, probably by 40 or 50%. And of course, it's a gorgeous town in Vermont. I mean, it's awesome, obviously. But by cutting those expenses, that gave me enough runway to finally get off the ground. It took a big move, right? It took changing the place I lived for 18 years and turning my life upside down. But
yes, huge decision.
Seems to have worked out, at least for now. You never know, right? We never know what tomorrow's going to bring us. But for today, at least, it worked.
Wonderful. I love that. Really good advice. Thank you. Okay, so I don't see any other questions coming in, but Selene does say, very good insight. Throw her on the screen.
Thank you. You're the best. Both you guys. Both former guests of Greater Good Entrepreneur, by the way. Yes,
exactly. We can throw a link in the comments as well to that. And so to finish off, I'm going to hop on just to say, but right, how can I get in touch with you? What's the best way to follow what you're working on and stay in touch?
So the best, actually, go to slowlivingsummit.org. Is it .org or .com? slowlivingsummit.org. And that is for the Entrepreneur to Table Summit. And there's a contact button there. Or you could go to the wyndhamgrows.org is the one for my accelerator and just hit the contact button. And you can get me at either one of those.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. And you're always in the lab. So more questions they can tag.
Absolutely. And I should go in the lab more. I've got to say, once I sort of took on the business accelerator, the day-to-day business of actually growing businesses,
a lot of work.
Takes a lot of my time. So I get a lot less time kind of on Facebook. I actually have had to put Greater Good Entrepreneur on hold probably until the fall because, as you know, booking guests takes a lot of time. And you've got, it's great that you've got, you were smarter than me in this case in that you built up the community. And now you can kind of tap that community for this kind of stuff. But I don't have that. I haven't really built a community in any way like that. So when I want to get good people, I have to go provide them value, right? I got to do that process I talked about. Sometimes it takes a very long time. So, anyhow.
Yep. One time and progress. Okay, cool. I just see Admir asked another question, but we are quite a bit over our kind of scheduled time. So perhaps you could pop in the and share your thoughts with Admir. What do you think is common for most of the social entrepreneurs around the world? Admir, can you, what piece of that you're wondering about? What element is not quite sure which direction? And yeah, that we maybe continue because I don't want time, Jim.
I'm not able to see his question in here. I mean, should we go into the lab and I can answer online there? Is that? Did you see that? That was my fingers at the keyboard.
That's perfect, and actually should be showing up in the lab or video. So find it and tag where to see it, and we'll continue the chat there.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jim. So much great. And I feel like we could cover. So I'll save that for another conversation. Keep doing our thing and learning further into the accelerator. It'd be great to hear more about your learnings there, working with those companies and, the themes that have shown up there. So we might have to have you on the show for that.
Well, maybe we could get a special seat for you at the Entrepreneur to Table Conscious Food Business Conference. I'd love to. We should meet live someday. We should meet face to face at some point. We should.
Okay, you and I need to chat. There might be a way to do this in the short term future. So cool. I'll keep you posted. But for now, we'll sign on the show, and thank you for joined. We had some really awesome questions and from all over, which is wonderful. And the replay will stick here in the lab, go on YouTube as well. And if you want to stay updated by email to hear about the wonderful guest we show the next day, you can go to www.docentlab.com/show. Sign up for the updates there. We'll keep you posted. Okay, thanks, Jim.
Cool, thank you.
And thanks, everybody. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye for now.